Hey everyone, Rick Oliva here, making my first online guitar lesson video. I've had a lot of students ask me the best way to learn the notes on the guitar. And I think what happens is a lot of guitar players or a lot of guitar students, the way that they learn is they learn a bunch of patterns. And the patterns are great for learning picking techniques and maybe playing fast, or if you don't know what to play during a guitar solo, well, I can go back to this pattern and I know that all these notes are in the scale, or all these, all the notes in the pattern are in the scale, so if I just play them really fast, no one will know if I'm hitting good notes or bad notes. I just play notes in the pattern. The problem with that is we don't really learn the notes on the instrument. We learn patterns and we can say, oh, I can play this G major scale or A minor scale, and then I can just slide it up and down the fretboard, and I can take a G major pattern and I can move it up 2 frets and now it's an A major pattern, and I can move it up 2 more frets and it's a B major pattern. But I haven't really learned any of the notes. I just know by rote, if I play those, that they'll be in the key. It doesn't tell me, oh, if I want to play the dominant 7th on a G7 dominant 7 chord, that's an F, and in all these different positions on the guitar, or at all these different strings, here's where all my Fs are. I just know that, well, if I'm trying to play a G7 chord and I know that that's in the key of C, then if I play a C major pattern, at one of those notes is going to be F. That's really not that helpful. So what I did is I came up with the system of learning the notes where I separate the guitar into 3 different positions, and the idea is if you just learn the notes in those 3 positions, then it makes it easier to learn the notes on the guitar, and if you need to find an E flat or an F sharp or a B or whatever note, it's a lot easier to find it. Now, just for clarification, the way that I define position is a little bit different than how some other people define position. How some people define position is the note that is predominantly played by your 2nd finger. So if I'm in 3rd position, that would mean my 2nd finger would play the 3rd fret, and my index finger could stretch down to the 2nd fret, or I could slide up this way so my pinky could move up a fret or 2. The way that I look at it is I say, if open position, if the lowest note in open position is the open string, and I can't go lower than that without detuning the guitar, then if I'm in 5th position, I'm not going to go lower than the 5th fret. If I'm in 10th position, I'm not going to go lower than the 10th fret. And the idea is if I'm in open position and the lowest note that I can play is 0, then it doesn't make sense that if I'm in 3rd position, then I could play the 2nd fret. I know some of your books, some of your teachers won't see it that way, but for sake of example and for this video, that's what I'm talking about. So we break it into 3 positions. The 3 positions are going to be the open, the 5th, and the 10th position. So the open position goes from the open string up to the 4th fret. The reason why we picked the 4th fret is because at the 5th fret, in this case, is an A. If you're in tune, which I'm slightly not in tune, but if you're in tune, that 5th fret would be the same pitch as the open string. That's better. Okay. So, open position will go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5th fret, instead of going to the 5th fret, we'll move to the next string. We'll move to the A string. Now, this video also makes some assumptions that you know the names of your strings. If you don't, really quick, it's E, A, D, G, B, E. If you need something to help you to remember that, every angry dog growls, barks, and eats. It also makes the assumption that you know the musical alphabet and where the half steps and whole steps lie. Musical alphabet, really quick, is A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Then we start over again at A. Half steps are between B and C and E and F. If you think of a piano keyboard and you think of you have one level of white keys and one level of black keys above it, there's 2 spots where there's 2 spots within that pattern where you have 2 white keys next to each other, and that's the E and the F and the B and the C, where there's not a black key in between. And so those are what we call half steps. On the guitar, a half step we move 1 fret, a whole step we move 2 frets. Now, taking that concept and putting this into these 3 positions, we'll go like this. One other thing, people will ask, well, do you write this down? No. I don't write it down. The reason being, I don't want to learn the notes by looking at a piece of paper and then memorizing where this dot or this fret and entablature is on the guitar. I want to learn by looking at the guitar and being able to visualize the fretboard. So, we start like this. We start with an E, open E string. E to F is a half step, so we go to the first fret. F to G is a whole step, so we go 2 frets higher. Then we go to A, which is going to be the open string, because remember, A would be a whole step higher than G, which would bring us to the 5th fret, but instead we'll move to the A string. A to B is a whole step, B to C is a half step, C to D is a whole step. Well, instead of going to the 5th fret, we'll go to the D string. D to E is a whole step, just 2 frets. E to F is a half step, and then we go to G. G to A is a whole step, and here we have a choice, because we could go up to the B on the 4th fret, or we could go to B open. Either way works. What some students will do is they'll say, I will play all the notes on the string that I'm on and then move to the next string. When they're doing this as an exercise, some of them will say, I'll move this to the next string as soon as possible. Some of them will say, I'll play both. So that would look like this. We could go G, A to B, and then C on the next string. Or you could say, I'm going to move as soon as possible, which would be G, A, B, C. Or you could say, I'll play both, which would be like this. G to A to B, and then B again, and then C is a half step higher, D is a whole step higher, and then E, we go to the next string, then E to F is a half step, F to G is a whole step. Okay, then we work our way back down. G down to F is a half step lower, F to E is open, then D is up here on the 3rd fret, D to C is a whole step lower, B is open, then A is the 2nd fret, and then G is an open string, and then F is the 3rd fret, E is a half step lower, D is open, C is a 3rd fret, B is a half step lower, A is open, G is a 3rd fret, F is a whole step lower, E is open. Okay, so now we've essentially done all of the white keys. If you think of a piano, all the white notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, none of the accidentals, no sharps or flats, in open position. E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, up and down. Okay. Now we take that, we move it up to the 5th fret. And we do the 5th position. 5th position is going to be frets 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then 10th fret, we'd move to the 5th fret instead. So it's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? Okay, so we'll start here. 5th fret is A. We can know that 2 ways. We can either go E, F, G, A, or we know when we're tuning the guitar that 5th fret on the E string is the same as the next string open. So if we can visualize that and say, okay, we have a reference point, we know that this is a A, this is a D, this is a G. Where we tune would be on the 4th fret, so a half step higher than the B is a C, then we have an E, and then the A, the 2 E strings are the same. So once again, we should know, if we know how to tune the guitar, that this would go A, D, G, C, E, A. So starting on A, we'll continue with all of the white keys. Think of it as the white notes on the piano. A to B is a whole step, B to C is a half step, D is the 5th fret of the next string, E is a whole step higher, F is a half step higher, G is the 5th fret of the next string, A is a whole step higher, B is also a whole step higher, C is the 5th fret on the next string. D is a whole step higher, and here we have that anomaly where we can play E in 2 different spots. F is a half step higher than that, G is a whole step higher, A is the 5th fret on the next string, then B, and then C. Then we come back down, C, B, A, and then G, F is a whole step lower, E is the 5th fret, or you can play it up here, D is the 7th fret, C, B, we're going to stretch for B, A is a whole step lower, G is a whole step lower, F, E is a half step lower, D is the 5th fret, C, B is a half step lower, A is the 5th fret. So now by doing that, we've essentially done all of the natural notes. I like to call them the white notes because it's the white keys on the piano. But some people say, oh, it's the natural notes because if they're not familiar with playing piano, they don't understand the reference. So we go like this. We've played now all of the natural notes from the open fret to the 9th fret. Once we finish with the 10th position, because we know on the guitar the 12th fret is the octave, so the 12th fret here is an E, if you don't believe me. E, F is a half step, G is a whole step higher, A is a whole step higher, B is a whole step higher, C is a half step higher, D is a whole step higher than that. E then is a 12th fret, so the open string and the 12th fret are both the same. Once we do this, we have now covered the whole first octave of the guitar, all of the natural notes. So we start here. Now, if you want a reference for the 10th fret to try to remember what the note is at the 10th fret, they're all natural notes across the entire 10th fret, and they're all the letter before the 12th fret. Now we know the 12th fret because we know the strings on the guitar, E, A, D, G, B, E. So if this is E, A, D, G, B, E, then this should be one before E is D, one before A is G, one before D is C, one before G is F, one before B is A, one before E is D. So, start on the 10th fret. We go like this. D, the 12th fret is E. Oh, one other trick that you can do for this is for all the natural notes, you're going to play the 10th fret and 12th fret across the entire thing. And then you'll play one note higher than this. So we go D to E, and then F is a half step higher than that. Then G, A, B is a whole step higher than that. C, D, and then E is a whole step higher than that. G, A, no, not G, A, F, G, and then we go A is a whole step higher than that. Then A, B, then C is a half step higher than that. Then D, E, F is a half step higher than that. So see, I get confused sometimes too, especially when I'm trying to talk fast. So I'll play that not so disjointed. D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then A you can play in 2 spots, B, C, D, E, F. Then we work our way back down. F, E, D, C is a half step higher than B, then B, A, which we know we can play that A in 2 spots, then G, F, and then E, D, C, B, A, G, F, E, D. So now we've played all of the natural notes from the open fret up a step or a half step or a whole step past the octave on the entire guitar. By doing this now we are no longer limited by patterns, and that's an important thing. Is when we're learning patterns, we might be able to play super fast, something that we just learned from rote memory. That's great, but we still haven't learned the notes. And when we're playing by patterns, if we say, okay, I'm going to play something that's in A minor, and I've learned 2 different A minor patterns, well, I'm limited then by the number of patterns that I have memorized. If I know that A minor, or what I'm trying to do, is all the natural notes, now I can slide through here. And what I'm doing is I'm thinking in terms of what are the notes, not in the patterns. I'm not saying, okay, well, if I'm playing down on the 1st fret, what is my pattern for the key of C major relative A minor in 1st position? So that way I can play these 2 notes, and then when I slide up here, I say, okay, well, what's my pattern for C major starting on the 5th position, and I want to jump up here and play a few notes, and I say, okay, well, if I'm on the 15th fret, what's my pattern for C major there? Or sometimes people will learn them in terms of modal regions. So I might say, okay, well, if I'm in the key of C major, but I'm in 1st position, then now I'm learning, or I'm using F Lydian modal region. And to me, that just doesn't make any sense. That's the way I learned it. And as I got into music and trying to play and improvise more, I started realizing the limitations in what I was doing, and I was limited by how many patterns I could memorize and how often I practiced those patterns. Because if I didn't practice it for, if I didn't practice melodic minor for 2 years. I couldn't go back and just play it in every different position. But by learning the notes, now all I have to do is know what note I'm looking for, and I can play whatever I want. So this especially helped me in jazz playing. So say I was going to play a chord and I wanted to play a G7 with a flat 13. Well, I'd say, well, the flat 13 is E flat. So now instead of trying to remember what pattern I used in whatever position that had an E flat in it, or that would work for G7 flat 13, I could just say, okay, well, my G7 flat 13 is E flat. So there it is, there's an E flat, here's an E flat, because I could say, well, here's my natural note is whatever position I'm in. I can say, well, it's the E is the open string, it's also the 5th fret, I can play E flat there. It's also the 9th fret here, I can play an E flat here. It's also the 12th fret, I can play an E flat here. Or if I wanted to, I could play an E flat here. So if I had a G7 and I was going to play all natural notes except for that E flat, I cheated. I did play a B flat there at the end. But you get the idea. If I'm playing some sort of jazzy blues thing, I can do A, B, G, A, F, D, E flat, D, C, and then the blues came in B flat, B. You know, I can do all kinds of things like that. So, I hope this video was helpful for you. If you did find it useful, feel free to come to my website, www.rickoliva.com. Donate $1 or $100, or visit my Patreon page and make a donation there. The next video I'm going to make is the next evolution of this, where we say, okay, how do I learn not just in position, but going diagonal across the guitar? And also, how do I play every other key? Because that's great that I know the natural notes, but if I'm in 4 sharps, how do I do that? That's coming next.